Chapter 2. Welcome to Hell. There are those who prey on fear. It isn't war that makes them evil. They were already brutal and sadistic by nature. War simply gives them some level of freedom to do as they will, to act on their deepest, darkest desires. Jess's journal. Tent 5 was large, larger than any of the other tents in this muddy hell. It sat apart from the others, and the only way in or out was ringed with wire. The main entrance flap was pulled aside. It was dark inside, and men were entering and leaving. A handful turned to assess the new piece of ass being hauled in. Jess had tripped twice, slipping in the mud, and it caked the front of her jeans, her free arm, and part of her shirt, since the soldier had not even paused, just dragged her along until she managed to regain her footing and trot unevenly next to him. Her arm felt like it was on fire, and she knew there would be bruises from his relentless iron grip. Abruptly, just inside the tent flap, they came to a halt. The tent was a rabbit warren of halls and partitioned rooms. Jess could hear a woman screaming. No, at least two, and the unmistakable sounds of sex. Oh God. Oh God, oh God, oh God. Her heart began to pound faster. She stood stock still, listening to the sounds and realizing, knowing what kind of a place Tent 5 was. The soldier holding her arm felt her stiffen beside him, looked over at her and saw the spark of fear, then understanding in her eyes. She hadn't known before, but she knew now. Oh yes, she knew now. He waited a moment, even loosened his grip slightly. This was the fun part. Seconds ticked by, 3, 4, and on the 5th second she pulled hard and jabbed left with her elbow, backpedaling to make a run for it. Her elbow jab missed. He was prepared for it, as he kicked her legs out from under her with one ruthlessly efficient maneuver. He sneered down at her. The girl was stupid. She took him for a recruit, which was her first mistake. Her second had been trying to hit him, and that earned her a strong punch, which he delivered to her nose before her body had even hit the ground. Her head thudded on the ground, and she went limp. It was disappointing to see her lose consciousness so quickly. He preferred his victims to be a little more sporting. How easily she was subdued. What he was not prepared for was the knife that had mysteriously appeared in her hand. His knife. Her eyes snapped open, and she slashed the back of his right knee, cutting deep as he fell to the ground. Bitch! She turned onto her belly, scrambling from him, stumbling to her feet, blood streaming from her nose from his punch, and ran straight into the arms of two soldiers heading into the tent. This time, when they knocked her to the ground, she stayed there, until the wounded soldier could lever himself close enough to attempt to choke her with his hands. The other men laughed as they pulled him off of her. "You'll get your chance to get her back, Robbie, you dumb bastard, just as soon as you get patched up." And with that, the medics arrived and helped him limp away, and Jess lay on the ground, afraid to get up, bleeding from her nose and mouth now, and listening to his furious howls as they headed for the hospital tent. One of the soldiers kicked her in the ribs, fast, hard, and she gasped in pain. "That's for Robbie. Now you stay there until we say you can move, bitch." She could only see his boots, but Jess could swear she heard him grinning. A third set of feet approached from deep inside the tent. "Who do we have here, Cooper dear?" The voice was neither male nor female. It defied placement and made Jess want to look up and see. She hurt too much, though, and was afraid the bastard standing over her would give her another kick. Cooper was tall, with jet black hair and pale blue eyes. "A new whore for you, Carmen," he replied. "And she's a feisty one." He reached down and hauled her to her feet effortlessly. Her head pounded in pain as Jess looked up to see that Carmen still defied description. Man, woman, the creature was sexless, and from the expression on her face, utterly heartless as well. Rather dirty, aren't you? Didn't your mummy and daddy teach you not to roll around in the mud?" Carmen looked down her nose, vaguely amused. "Strip her clothes off, Cooper." The soldier holding her grinned and pulled her closer against him, taking the opportunity to grope her breast, squeezing it painfully. The second man unsheathed a long hunting knife. Jess knew it was hopeless to fight. If she struggled, she doubted they would stop from cutting her with the vicious thing. They made short work of it, Lieutenant Cooper looked disappointed at her lack of struggle. They took it all off, and she knew they had won the first round. Without clothes, she couldn't leave the tent. If she provoked them, they would rape her right there, maybe even beat her some more, maybe even kill her. Stay alive. Wait for the moment. All this will pass, she counseled herself silently. She held back the tears and endured their taunts. They would grow bored, want someone more entertaining. Wait for the moment. And before she knew it, the Carmen creature was shoving her towards crude showers. Her composure was brittle. It survived the ice-cold water being dunked over her head, the brush used to roughly scrape against her rapidly bruising skin, and Carmen's long nails cutting into her skin as she dragged her dripping down a short hall, through a curtain, and into a room with a filthy bed in it. It did not survive, however, what happened next. Carmen was strong. He shoved Jess to the bed, and before she could fight back or jump up, Carmen grabbed one wrist and secured Jess to the bed frame with a pair of handcuffs. Lieutenant Cooper was the first one through the door, brushing past and already pulling off his belt, as Carmen exited and announced, "She's all yours, boys." And hours later, when the men had used her violently, laughed at her tears, and came inside her with satisfied grunts, one after another, she lay there in shock. She had blood on her thighs, bruises on her arms and legs. She ached from deep inside in her bones, and wondered if hell could possibly be worse.